Okay. I believe I'm here. I have my festive shirt on. Esther isn't very festive in the back, but that's okay. I have harsh lighting. I have my essential oil diffuser going in the back with lavender to keep me calm. I have hibiscus tea. God. Okay. I don't know what the hell's going on. Oh, what do we want to know? Okay. We'll get rolling here. I know I'm slow at starting these things, but I've really never done these things before, and I don't know what I'm doing. So, I was going to start out tonight talking about going under center, but then then it turned into kind of a really weird day, and uh, that it turned into a really weird day. It turned into a really weird day because apparently the video that I did from the field at Minnesota on Sunday got kind of blew up. It blowed up. It blowed up, went viral, I guess you'd call it. Which is kind of weird because you always hear people talking about going viral, and then I'm not sure what that means. I was a million views. Well, it's not going to make a million views. That'd be nice, but I guess it blew up enough that the Athletic did an article on it. Mitch Sherman, the guy that reports on Nebraska, called me and we did an interview, and I got plenty of people saying that they feel the same way as I do. And then I got some crap from people about being credentialed and apparently speaking my mind, which I think is kind of weird because we watch a sport where 310-pound guys smash themselves into each other repeatedly, and it's going to cause permanent disabilities in some people and possible brain injuries in some people. But apparently we shouldn't be swearing when we're talking about it or actually saying what we feel. So the article in the Athletic, I should post a link to it. Maybe as we get moving and I get more accustomed to this and get into this a little bit better, then we'll get going. Husker Chuck says, I support Scott Frost, but it's wearing me out. I completely agree with that sentiment. I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are wondering, we played well at Michigan, and it was a great game, and we lost that one by one score. And then we come up to Minnesota. And we lose by one score. And I think the thing about that is this. Obviously I'm an old crusty guy. And when you look at Minnesota, you think of Minnesota the way that you've seen them throughout your lifespan, which is Minnesota has never really been a good football team unless we go all the way back to like 1939 with oh my God, the guy's name is Murray shit. His name is not Murray shit. 1939, I remember Minnesota could have been ranked number 1 and number 2 with their second string. That's how long ago Minnesota was a good team. In fact, right before I made the video that I made on the field, I noticed that security people had kind of sectioned off a part of the field. And I knew one of the security guys, and I knew he had a good sense of humor. He was the guy in charge. And I walked up to him and I asked him, can I go on that section of field and do a video? And yes, it will probably include some profanity. And he said, oh, and I said, yes, it will probably be actually pretty nasty. And he turned around and he pointed up at the ring around the stadium. And he said, look at that 1967. That was the last time that Minnesota won a Big Ten championship. I was born in 1968. So I feel your pain. Minnesota has never won a Big Ten championship in my lifetime. And then I went off, and then all of a sudden these kids started showing up around me while I'm swearing my head off. And I tried to maneuver so I was away from them, but I didn't do that great, although I noticed out of the corner of my eye that one of the dads was laughing but pulling his children away from me at the same time. So yeah, supporting Scott Frost is, I think, wearing everybody out. Maybe it'd be different if it was a different a different way we lost every time. I guess if you come down to specifics, but I mean, one score game every time we lose. Is that what's getting frustrating for people? Is that we just can't get that extra score, or is it in the ways we lose, or is it just that we should be beating Minnesota? And I don't know. You look at Minnesota, and I guess maybe they're a better team than we thought they were, because they are right now second in the Big Ten West behind Iowa, and they control their own destiny. In other words, if they beat Iowa, they win the Big Ten West. Of course, they win the rest of the games. Headwaters Fly Fishing Company says, you are not a very knowledgeable football fan. Then what the hell are you here? There you go. How does a team actually win one-score games? Because I seem to be missing the point when I listen to Scott Frost speak every week. You know, they managed to lose one-score games. 17 of them, I believe it is, under Scott Frost. You know, because it's just the one thing. You know what it is? It's Jacques Yant falling down before he gets into the goal. It was Xavier Betts having a pass when he was wide open. Seriously, I was in the end zone. He is running straight at me. There is nobody in front of him, and I think the pass was too high, and he caught it, but he fell. If he catches that pass in stride, it's a touchdown. You know, it's that just simple kind of stuff like that that they could complete doing. And at this point, it almost seems like there is kind of a curse. Jay Hathaway, soon we could slide down Castle Hill and forget about Husker football for a few months. You know, I'm going to bring this up. But this college football season, what we've seen is this from everybody. And it's certainly been for Nebraska. I mean, you've watched, let's take Minnesota, for example. You've seen Minnesota played a terrible game against Bowling Green and lost. And then they beat us. And they pull out a game against Purdue, and Purdue beats Iowa. And last week I got a comment from somebody who was disgusted with me calling Iowa a fraud. But what happened to Iowa is they finally played a team with a quarterback who didn't throw interceptions and had an NFL quality receiver. And Iowa had to make their own points on offense, which they are completely incapable of doing. But you've seen this college football season that's gone boom, boom, boom. And you go, why is that? Well, as a crotchety old man, I'm going to say it's because you guys, these kids these days, never had to walk uphill both ways. They never had to go through tough times in their life. So therefore, when, you know, they're up and down, that's what they do. They're not like this. It's I get to use old man references. Washington State just fired their head football coach for not getting vaccinated. How do you feel about that? I was wondering if I'd get a question like this. I hate to go into this stuff because it's just a really, you know what? We'll leave that for a little bit. You have a great show. I like this. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Have I ever heard of the name Bronco Nagurski? Yes, I do, but it's not in my mind right now. Let's see. When I found out a lot of the players weren't ready to kill the Gophers because it was an 11 a.m. game, that really made me wonder how invested these players are. I think they're very invested. I mean, they do attend practice. They do work their asses off. But again, it's that PJ Fleck took a shot at Scott Frost this week when he did his post-game presser, and he mentioned, what was it? It was culture over skill. And he said, basically implying that his culture was a lot better than the skill players at Nebraska. And honestly, Nebraska does have a fair amount of skill players. I mean, when we look at the offense alone, you've got Omar Manning, Samari Torrey, both of which kind of disappeared this week. We have a lot of skill players, and Minnesota was down 2 running backs and still beat us. But PJ Fleck did take a direct shot at Scott Frost about the culture versus skill thing. And I think maybe that was payback for the earlier comment where Frost said he wasn't into sloganeering. And keep in mind, when he said that, it was a Big Ten media days, and he never mentioned Fleck, never brought up Fleck. It was us. I did put Fleck's name in with that line on Twitter. Scott Frost never mentioned PJ Fleck, and you can kind of go, well, that's who he was thinking about. Well, maybe it was and maybe he wasn't. We were putting words in Scott Frost's mouth for that. Because when you look around the nation, you've got turnover chains and turnover donkeys and turnover cars. You got all these things, If you get a turnover, you got to wear a chain. That's just the most weird thing I think ever. And I would agree with Scott Frost. If you need that as motivation, you shouldn't do anything for him. But PJ Fleck, you got to admit, I think he's a better coach than most Nebraskans want to give him credit for. But at the same time, he's really kind of a used car salesman guy. I mean, he knows what to do in the media, and mostly it's about PJ Fleck. And I guess, honestly, I think that he probably should stay at Minnesota, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went west to USC the end of the season. Most, if not all, successful college coaches have it rolling by year 4. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Yeah. We found a lot of players. LSU claims they are getting Fleck. I've never been to Tiger Stadium, and I've always wanted to go to a night game at Tiger Stadium. And I'd love to be on the field with a camera at Tiger Stadium. LSU, PJ Fleck would be eaten there in about 5.5 minutes. Or not. Maybe he'd foot in. Maybe his type of bullshitty, but he doesn't have the accent. He'd have to pick up on the accent really good, really quick. I actually worked a lot in New Orleans before and right after Katrina. But I loved being in New Orleans. I also concluded that if I lived there, I would be a 350-pound alcoholic in a year. That was back when I was drinking. I no longer drink. Now I'd just be 350 pounds and miserable because the food down there is so excellent. John, I have a question. At what point do we ask Frost as to why he is investing his entire career in Lincoln on Adrian Martinez? In your opinion on him coming back another year? Adrian Martinez is an incredible athlete. He's an incredible athlete. He's the reason we're in a lot of games. Most of the other teams fear him. But has there been anybody else that's been more not clutch than Adrian Martinez? And that's the part that's so frustrating about him. I mean, he backed into the end zone, and like what? He didn't realize he was in the end zone, throws the ball out of the end zone, clearly not out of the pocket. Like this is a shock to him after he'd already been hit right up the middle before. A shot I missed, by the way, because I was watching the game. Sometimes I get, you got your camera and you start watching the game instead of shooting it. And I was shocked by that one hit he took earlier where he just seemed to be stunned that it came that quick out of nowhere and he got blasted. So Adrian Martinez, my opinion on him coming back for another year. At this point, I'm ready to watch somebody else. I really am. I don't mean that really as a knock on Adrian Martinez, but something has to change with this one-score game bullshit. You can't. It's the same. Toward the end of the game, I was sitting next to the end zone, next to a kid a young man from the Daily Nebraskan, and I was already swearing then. And I thought at the time, hey, we're going to lose by 2 scores. That'll be at least different. And then I thought, they literally are running out of ways to lose games that are different. So maybe they just have to go through this long list of ways that they can actually lose. Because I don't think they've lost really on a safety, and that was when Nebraska had momentum, and they had to give the ball back to Minnesota, and lost that momentum, and it really sucked. But him coming back another season, I'd really like to see what Scott Frost can do without Adrian Martinez. If we can have a team, if we can somebody else, something, I don't know. At this point, I'm not ready to say. Nobody's asked the big question that I expected earlier. Well, there's one. If Scott Frost wasn't Scott Frost, would he still be here, right or wrong? I don't think so. I don't know. I would think that I think that you've continually fire people, that you're not going to find success either, and you do have to have the patience to stick through, getting them going. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's been at Michigan, I don't know what, 7th year now, 18th year, whatever. And he's finally looks like he's put the staff together to have a really, really good season. He hasn't had bad seasons, but he hasn't beat his rivals either. So, maybe Jim Harbaugh is the native son that they stuck with, and he may turn out to be okay, and he might beat Ohio State this year. And that would be a giant monkey off their shoulder back. If Michigan fans who wear their Michigan gear in airports would stop having me come up to them and give them shit. Because I don't wear my Husker gear in airports, because why would I do that? I forgot where I was. Why is this team such a mystery? Well, Corey, if anybody could figure that fucking question out, we'd be winning all our games, wouldn't we? Especially people in charge. And Martinez, not the problem. Get rid of him. You won't have to worry about one-score losses. I don't disagree with that. On the other hand, I don't agree with it either. That's the paradox that is this team. Perhaps that's the word to describe Husker football. John, how important is it really that Nebraska hires admins and coaches that have Nebraska ties? I hate it. I'm growing to having Trev Alberts, I think, might be a good active athletic director. But I think that I think it's completely unimportant. I don't buy into this stuff where you have to hire somebody who understands us. Because Nebraska is at a very dangerous point. And it's a very dangerous point, because we are on the verge of possibly becoming very good. We're also on the verge of having to fire the guy that might make us good. And part of the problem we have is when you looked at other structures in the past, is people who are successful build a tradition and they build a way of doing things. But as time passes by, those things become irrelevant. The things that made them good here are not going to be relevant here. And I think it's important that you recognize that you have to change with the times. And if you get stuck back here in this tradition mode, then you're not going to change and not going to be able to move forward. 1980s, in the 1980s, who was it? Tom Peters wrote a book called Thriving on Chaos. And it was a business book. And the one line I remember from it was, you'd better find out how to obsolete yourself, because if you don't, someone else will. And this is very germane. In that video that went viral, I know there's clips of it on Twitter that weren't the whole video, but I gave credit to Minnesota for having a fun game day atmosphere. And one of the things that Minnesota does, I think that's very good, and actually most of no, you can't have a hug, Nate. I think most of the Big Ten stadiums do, or teams do, schools, is they have their student section right where the team comes out. And in Nebraska, the team comes out and the student section is all the way across on the other side of the field. Does this win games? No, it doesn't win games. But what it does is create a pretty cool atmosphere. Because if you're in Nebraska right now, you shouldn't be thinking about just right now. You should be thinking about what's going to happen in 20 years, because you want those student section people that are all the way at the other end of the stadium to buy into your stuff, get back to their school and still buy tickets and still come back to Nebraska and spend their money so bars in the Haymarket can stay in business and you could have good food to eat when you go down there. So how do you do that? You take the student section, you move into where the freaking team comes out of the tunnel. Why is that important? I don't know. Maybe because the students are student athletes down here playing football, and the students that go to class with them are up here. And then at the end of the game, they can all come over and get together before they go into the tunnel again. Like Minnesota does. It's kind of cool. All the players line up and the band lines up and they sing some fucking song of happiness that we didn't get to sing. So I think that would be a neat change that Trev Alberts could make at Nebraska that wouldn't have an immediate impact and probably piss a lot of old people off because they're like going to church. I've been sitting in that same pew for 30 years. But I think for the future, it could have a good impact on people coming to the games and student coming to the games and having fun. Besides that, if you're going to change it up, let's change it up. Well, okay. Brandon Sports World says, I laughed when you said your wife asked what you were going to do. Walk in front of a bus. You know what the funny thing was? Is the part that didn't make it into the video because I didn't see her text was I did text her and say, I think I'm going to walk in front of a bus. And she texted me back after that and she said, you can't do that today. It's your daughter's birthday. Which kind of implied it'd be okay if I did it tomorrow or Sunday, but not today. And then I met my kids and my family, and we all went out and went to her house and had Domino's pizza and wings. And they didn't give me a lot of crap because it's getting old. You can only give dads crap about losing by one score so many times before you go, this isn't fun anymore. I'm in year 7 with Jim and still have 0 championships. Go blue, have hope. Yeah, I get that. We are not getting Fickle or Urban if we fire the Golden Child and Frost. So let's say fuck it all and hire Deion Sanders. I don't think Deion Sanders would fit well at Nebraska myself. But you know what? Maybe it's time that we looked at this and said, I don't give a fuck who we hire as long as they win. Now, what happened over the weekend? 2 coaches are gone. LSU has decided to part ways with Ed Orgeron at the end of the season, mostly because, everybody's got this feeling about Ed that he's not really that good a coach. And apparently he went through a divorce and now has many 20-something-year-old girlfriends, which doesn't sit well with people, which is, I personally find kind of strange because, I have a beautiful wife and I have a good marriage. And if she left me or if something happened to her and I was single, I'm not getting paid $9 million a year unless you guys can step up to the plate. But 20-year-olds probably way too young for me, but at the same time, I mean, come on. If you can attract them, what the hell? Edo, okay, I answered that. Stop talking about we lost by 1 score. That's what losers say. And if you are a fan of Nebraska, remember that is a loser win. I don't understand that comment, honestly. We should offer Bob Stoops $10 million a year to come fix this mess. And then there's this guy that says, finally, do you think Scott Frost will get fired? That was a question I was kind of prepared to answer in a way. And the answer is, I don't know. I mean, we still have some games to go, and we still have a ways to go in this season. And I think the thing with Minnesota losing is we had this hope that we're going to keep getting better and get over that hump. And what we see all across the board in college football is this is a chaos mayhem year and everybody's insane. But is Scott Frost going to get fired? I think if Scott Frost doesn't win another game, I think he's probably gone. But what do we have left? We got Purdue, Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Iowa. 4 games. 4 games we could win and 4 games we could lose. And I know that you're all going, what the fuck is with this guy? He thinks we're going to win these games. That's the thing is everybody is up and down from week to week. And Nebraska has shown they can play with top 10 teams, at least within a single score. And Wisconsin is a mess. Their offense is terrible. We know that. Their defense is very good. Purdue is guard against the pass, and you're going to win. What happened to Iowa, I mentioned this already. Maybe it was in my mind. They played a team whose quarterback didn't throw interceptions. So Purdue, could we win that? Yeah, I think that one's up in the air. Ohio State, probably not, but they've shown they can be vulnerable too. Wisconsin, yeah, because they can't score points unless we give it to them. And then Iowa, again, a terrible offense. The game will probably end up 6-3, and then we got Connor Culp. Shit, we're probably not going to win another game. Maybe we'll win them all. I don't know. That's why you just got to learn to take life one at a time. Do I think Scott Frost is going to be fired, though? If I had to say it right now and you guys could hold me to it, I'd say probably not. I think that he's probably going to have to redo his offensive staff, a lot of it. I think his offensive coordinator is going to have to go away because one common problem, I kind of mentioned it in the video on Saturday, is red zone offense. This team has this offense that does very well, and then they get down to the red zone, and it's like they just quit running their offense. It's like they get terrified to throw the ball. And here we are. We got all these receivers, Omar Manning. Austin Allen, you can't throw fades. You can't throw the ball up in the air and let Austin Allen go get it. And that seems to be, why are we doing that? We can't score there when then we put Connor Culp in, and God help him, he misses field goals. And I feel sorry for the kid because we shouldn't be blaming the kicker for anything. We should be blaming the offensive line that didn't get us into the end zone. Scott Frost fired. The problem with that is starting all the way over when we're really not that far away, and we could say that for another year, and we could lose one score games for another year. And I think if you just fire him, you're going to have to rebuild everything from scratch and start over. And the whole cult, some guy else talking, and he'll go, the last coach talked about culture, so I have to talk about winning, just winning, nothing else. Never mentioned the word culture, because Bo Pelini took the word process. Otherwise, Prost would probably be saying we have to trust the process in every conference, in press conference, and somebody else would go, no, Bo Pelini already used that, man. Yeah, if you fire Frost, it's another few years for the new coach to get his recruits in there, give Frost 2 more years. If same play persists, then find someone new. Good coaches aren't falling off trees. Well, that's the thing about Scott Frost, is he was supposed to be a really good coach. I mean, he was the hottest name when he was hired, and he comes to Nebraska, and he has not come nearly as close as we wanted him to being a savior, I guess, to be honest with you. Culture is what you say when you can't figure out how to win football games. I kind of disagree with that. I think you do need the culture part of it. There's another question about the Washington State coach getting fired. Windows get smaller in the red zone. That's true. But when you got tight ends the size of, most cornerbacks are in the 5'10" range, and then there's Austin Allen at, 7'8". What is he, 6'11", 6'8"? And the guy, Austin Allen, is the one guy that came out of Saturday's game like an NFL level highlight reel, didn't he? I mean, he looked really good. And then you had Samari Toure that had 1 catch or 1 yard. How did Minnesota's defense isn't that good. I don't get why he just disappeared in that entire game. Frost needs to let his assistants coach, or why are they there? The one thing I noticed about Frost is during timeouts, and I've noticed this about James Franklin too. But during timeouts, Frost stood over here while the rest of his team was here. In other words, he was letting his assistant coaches do all the talking, and when the team was off to the side of the field during a timeout, I thought that was interesting. I think I took some shots at that, but I just started going through my photos because I was so, I don't know, I was just disgusted. I didn't even want to look at him. And I don't think I did that well. I do think I got a shot of Martinez right at the goal line, but I'll go find it. My God. I also got, well, maybe I'll put him on the site and you'll see him later. I don't see how you could keep your job at 3-9. I don't think he will keep his job at 3-9. Okay, why not go under center? That was actually what I was going to start talking about when I did the video this morning. That was going to be my subject before the post-game video went viral. The reason why you don't go under center is because it's not part of your offense. I mean, that's just the simple answer. Because when you go under center, it changes a lot of, well, it changes everything. I mean, your center's got to snap the ball differently. The timing's differently. Are you going to have your quarterback then just do a sneak? Maybe not a bad thing, but there's a lot that you can do wrong if you're not used to just going under center and having that part of your offense. And if you look at that play at the goal line, if Jaquez Yant just keeps on his feet, they score, and they score easily. And down on the field, you can't tell what the replays are doing that you guys see on TV. And Martinez was right in front of me when he tried to get into the end zone. I was at an angle. I couldn't tell if he got in because he was right there. And I guess the TV angle showed that he was in the end zone. So going under center, I want you to think about this. Honest to God, give it serious thought. First of all, I played high school football. I played guard. I always thought people that played, and I wasn't very good. I wasn't a good athlete. I got to play because I was in a small town. But I got to play. Yeah, it was one neat experience of my life. But I always thought people that played center are batshit insane people. Because think about the things that a center has to do. They have to remember the snap count. I know you're thinking all the rest of the offensive linemen have to do that too, but sometimes you can cheat and just wait until the center snaps the ball. I hate to say that. And hopefully you're very quick if you're a tackle blocking a rush end. But snap count, you have to, if you're in college, you have to make the line calls. In other words, you have to recognize the defense and call what the line blocking is. Third, you have to get down and you have to put your hand out and you have to snap a ball simultaneously with moving forward, thrusting forward. Because normally in the Big Ten, there's probably going to be a 320-pound guy right in your face. And the key is this. You're going to have to snap that ball and get under him and knock him down and flatten him. Because if he gets under you, he's pushing you up, right? And you're losing leverage and you're blocking the way for whoever's behind you. So you have to snap that ball perfectly and get under him to knock him down. That's a lot of stuff going on right at the goal line. So, is that happening if you're in the shotgun? Yeah, but it's part of your offense. And I think the key with that is if you're lining up in like a power I, pretty much you're running up the middle. If you're lining up in a spread and in a shotgun, you got a lot of different options because you can do a zone read there. You can do you can run a speed option in that situation much easier, I think, than you can out of the power I. But I think a lot of people make a big deal out of that. The announcers certainly bitch about it, but I don't think people think much more of it other than we should do this and it'll always work, and it won't always work. Going under center is kind of like running the option. If you're going to run the option successfully, it has to be part of your offense. You can't just dabble in the option. right? Because if you dabble in the option, what happens is your quarterbacks tend to pitch the ball way too early. They don't hold the ball all the way up until they make a guy commit. So it's kind of that same concept. Either make it part of your offense or don't do it at all. And in Nebraska's case, they're not lining up under center. And that's just the way it is. And I guess if you hate that, then, we should fire Scott Frost, burn everything down, and start over. You have one coaching position to change. Which would it be? That's hard. And I personally, I like Greg Austin, but I'd probably find an established offensive line coach. I mean, if you came to me and said you're going to be fired, coach, but you have to, unless you give one of your offensive players up, or unless you change one of your staff members, you will be fired. I'd probably choose Greg Austin. It might be Mario Verduzco, but we have a data point of one with Mario, one quarterback. And we really haven't gotten to see Logan Smothers or Matt Masker or Heinrich Harburg, or what's the new kid coming in next year, Torres, hopefully. So I guess it'd be Greg Austin, even though I think I loved him as a Husker. And you ain't seen a Big Mac at the 1 yard line. That's probably as good an explanation as anything else. I want to know what your connection to Nebraska is, since it sounds like you have lived up there for a long time. I've lived up here since 1987. In May of 1987, I graduated from UNL and moved to Minnesota. And the reason I moved to Minnesota is because, like a lot of my friends in 1987, there were not jobs in Nebraska. So it sounds like right now Nebraska is growing decently. I mean, you got Huddle there, you got some tech stuff going on. But in 1987, everybody left the state that wanted to get a job. And I had already lived in Texas, and I didn't want to live in the heat. And I'd already lived in Arizona, and I didn't want to live in the heat. So I came to Minnesota. But I grew up in a little town called Curtis, Nebraska, out by North Platte. Went to UNL, where I spent 7 years working my ass off to cram a 4-year art degree in and get my degree. I majored in college. Back then, it was cheap enough. You could just stay in college for a while until you figured out what you wanted to do. So that's what I did. But, it's funny. Friday night, we were at the Minnesotans for Nebraska event at the Mall of America, and people were talking about living in Minnesota and the Minnesotans for Nebraska name we use. And somebody said, well, do you consider yourself Minnesotan? And I said, fuck no, I don't consider myself Minnesotan. For God's sakes, what the hell's wrong with you? I mean, I'm consider me like ambassador. Yeah, an ambassador. I think it is best to forfeit. No more pain. My heart can't take it. I understand that concept. This is why they make alcohol and people have problems. Anyways, I don't think we will find a coach that loves Nebraska more, takes as much pride in being our head coach. He is smart enough. He will change things around. He is a young coach. He will improve. That's kind of the thing is, I mean, what do you expect out of Scott Frost? Do you expect him to learn on the job? I think I brought this up last week, but if you're okay paying $5 million for a year for a guy that is your native son to learn on the job and learn how to compete in the Big Ten, then you're okay with this. If you think that he should just show up and win, then obviously this is driving you batshit insane. John, what's the best part of working on CornNation? Going to these games like this when you're on the sideline. I don't get out a lot. I don't. I wish I could more. That whole pandemic thing, nobody wanted me going anywhere because everybody was afraid I'd get COVID. And I have part of my heart is dead from a heart attack. It is. Part of my heart is dead. You know what part it is? Part that had any love for Iowa or Creighton. But I don't get out as much as I'd like to, but I'd say it's going to the games. I think I have a really great staff full of really fun people, and especially during this pandemic, we use Slack to communicate. And I think without them, I'd have been a hell of a lot more depressed than I was during the pandemic, honestly. So it's, I guess it's probably the people, and it's also, uh, the ability to talk to people. I noticed. I think somebody left a comment about why would you? This guy's never played it down in his life, and I think the thing you have to understand about that is college. Yeah, you're right. Pro, right? But I talk to the people that do, and I try to, learn everything I can from them. Which brings me to one more thing. I talked to a number of Big Ten officials on the field Saturday because they were standing there and it was for the game. And I should have gotten there an hour early and I probably would have had more time to talk to them. But there are a number of officials standing together on the sideline. So I went up and talked to the Big Ten officials. Now, did I walk up and ask them, why is officiating so shitty? No, I did not do that. That would be the equivalent of some strange guy looking like this, like a homeless person that got on the field, walking up to them and saying, if you quit drinking so much, your wife would have more sex with you. You would look at me and go, what the fuck is wrong with you? Get the hell away from me. So I didn't just come out and ask, why is officiating so shitty? I kind of wanted to, but what I asked them was something that's bothering me. That did they feel like the number of officials has dropped because of the pandemic? Because if you go out right now and you search, and this is your homework for the week, you go out and search on that big search machine on the internet, and you look for high school official shortage. You will find articles all over the nation talking about how there's a massive shortage of high school officials, how games are are being canceled and schedules are being rearranged, and like 30% of the officials that they had are gone. And a while back I interviewed a guy named Louis Curtis, I think it was, who was like the head of the Iowa officials. And he talked about the fact that a lot of guys, older guys in high school, just said the hell with it and retired during the pandemic. And the younger people don't want to do this. And I want you to ask yourself, would you be an official? And one of the Big Ten officials, when I asked them this, I said, I know that there's a high school official shortage. Is there an official shortage in college? And they started talking about the fact that it takes a lot of time for them to work up to that. You don't just walk out and become a Division 1A official. You have to work up, right? So you start in middle school, high school, go up to college lower levels, and then get up into, Division 1. And they talked about that. One of them specifically said, it's a lot harder to do this. You look at the high school officials, they're all fat slobs or something like that. He said something about them being out of shape and being fat, which I thought was hilarious. And then one of the other ones turns and says, they treat high school officials horrible. And I thought, you guys don't think it kind of implied that we don't treat Division 1 officials horrible, which I think we do. But they basically said there's no drop in the officials at their level. To which I said, what do you think is going to happen in 5 years when you don't have an increased pool of officials coming out of high school? Because it's going to get bad because all these kids, younger kids, start at middle school and they get yelled at by parents. And then they go, I don't want to be an official. Why would I do this? Would you do this? Any of you? What's it pay? Well, at the high school level, I don't think it pays shit. They don't get paid. You do it because you love the game and respect the game. I think if you're you doing a middle school or a high school game and parents are screaming at you and you're like 20, you're saying, screw this. I'm going to go out with my friends. Why would I put up with this shit? So the officiating probably isn't bad because the lack of officials on the field. but I think in 5 years it'll be a huge issue. I like 10 years ago, I did a series of articles that were interviews with a friend of mine at that time who was an official in the ACC. And we did a lot of stuff, and he talked about how they worked up to it. They had to be graded. And maybe I'll put those links to those articles in the notes for this show. But, I forgot where I was going. Okay, it's 8:18. Honestly, in 12 minutes, I have to go work on a web server. So, how would Nebraska football team look like if you were a head coach? You know what? Save that for a week. I think that's an interesting question. I'd probably, I don't know. Let's see. My dog's name is Creighton. Woo. Five wins may get a bowl game this year. That is true. I filled in for my neighbor once, high school, reffing a kid's basketball game. Never again. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I think you know what? I think an interesting. We seem to have all these TV shows, the reality shows, where we're having like the Masked Singer and the Avatar Singer, and it's like a popularity contest. I think it would be interesting to have fans selected to officiate games, and then we vote on them. It sounds, maybe that's stupid. I don't know. A senior moment, yeah. Fire Frost, and we lose possibly the 2023 recruiting class. How many more years for the next bowl game then? That's why Trev Alberts gets paid shit tons of money to make that decision. And I think a lot of officials could be replaced with cameras and sensors all over. That's an interesting comment too. And I think we'll shelve that. I want to hopefully write these down or maybe talk about these in the, I'll try to do these every week. John, just so you know, your face and words are now pasted on the Husker subreddit. This is it's kind of neat and it's kind of terrifying at the same time. I guess I've been doing this for 15 years and, for about 14 of those years or 13 of those years, I kept my face out of everything because I just thought I don't want people to know who I am personally. And then last year I just decided, I'll try doing something different, and the other honest truth is this: I would be writing more, but it takes a lot more mental energy to put an article together. And for some reason, with the brain injury thing going on, I can sit down and talk to people, but where writing would be, I couldn't do it because I can't maintain that level of focus. That sounds weird and a bad explanation. But I'm gonna have to go because I figured I have to figure out host headers on WordPress because the developer that did this website just took off. He said, it's your problem. He got paid and he said, fuck it. And I have to do it at night because nobody's using the systems. Okay. I guess thanks for your support. Hopefully I'll do this again every week, and we'll have therapy. I expect you to bring your counseling, your therapy questions to this every week. And I completely skipped the vaccine thing. And it's too late to do it now. I would get into this, but maybe we will in the next week or so. You guys take care and have a good week. It's a bye week. Maybe we'll win. Probably not, though.